There is a specific texture to the air when you wake up in a life that has been entirely solved. It is not heavy with dread, exactly. It does not carry the sharp, metallic taste of panic that accompanies a crisis. Instead, it possesses a peculiar, suffocating flatness. Your eyes open, and before your feet even touch the floor, your nervous system has already mapped out the next 16 hours with terrifying accuracy. You know precisely what the coffee will taste like. You know the exact cadence of the morning commute, or the specific hum of the laptop fan as it powers up. There is a physiological safety in this. Your heart rate remains steady. Your cortisol levels are chemically managed. There are no lions in the tall grass. There are no sudden drops in the terrain. You have built a fortress of predictability. But if you pay close attention to the somatic feedback loop, the signals traveling from your gut to your brainstem, you will notice a subtle, persistent interference. It manifests as a tightness behind the sternum that has nothing to do with cardiac function. It is a low-frequency vibration in the limbs, a ghostly impulse to run that is immediately suppressed by the logic of the frontal cortex. You are safe, you are stable, you are doing what is responsible. Yet, this stability demands a metabolic tax you are barely aware you are paying. You find yourself exhausted by 2 p.m, despite having done nothing physically demanding. You stare at a spreadsheet or a wall, and for a microsecond, the room tilts. You feel a sudden, violent urge to destroy the order you have painstakingly cultivated, but the impulse vanishes as quickly as it arrived, metabolized back into the grey noise of the routine. Why does safety feel so much like sedation? To the external observer, your condition does not look like a struggle, it looks like an accomplishment. The world views your trajectory through the lens of traditional developmental milestones, and by those metrics, you are the exemplar of high-functioning adulthood. When friends or family look at your life, they see the reliable salary, the structured weekends, and the absence of volatile crises, and they label it maturity. They tell you that you are grounded, or settled, words meant to be compliments, but which land on your psyche with the heavy, dull thud of a prison door closing. Because you have effectively mitigated risk, those around you assume you have also achieved contentment. They project their own anxieties about instability onto your silence, interpreting your lack of impulsive movement as wisdom rather than paralysis. You become the repository for their chaotic confessions, the stable one they turn to when their own passionate, disorganized lives veer off course. They admire your discipline, unaware that what they call discipline is actually a rigid, fear-based heuristic designed to prevent the nervous system from encountering the unknown. This social feedback loop creates a profound isolation. You cannot articulate the suffocating flatness you feel because, empirically, you have nothing to complain about. To express dissatisfaction with safety sounds like the whining of the privileged. How do you explain that you are drowning in air? The validation you receive for being sensible reinforces the very behavior that is slowly devouring you. You are rewarded for your suppression. Every nod of approval from a parent, a partner, or a boss acts as another layer of cement on the containment structure. You are forced to smile and agree that yes, you are lucky, while internally, the energy required to maintain this facade of gratitude begins to draw from a reserve you did not know was finite. You are performing okayness at a metabolic cost that is becoming unsustainable. The erosion of the self does not happen with a chaotic crash. It occurs in the quiet, unobserved margins of your daily existence, a slow calcification of the spirit that mimics the onset of age, but is actually the accumulation of unspent kinetic energy. You begin to notice a persistent cognitive fog, a layer of insulation between you and the raw data of reality that no amount of sleep seems to dissipate. This is not simple tiredness. It is a specific, heavy form of exhaustion born from the continuous, active suppression of the life force. We often mistake stability for a low-energy state. We assume that because we are not physically moving or taking risks, our nervous system is at rest. This is a fundamental physiological error. To maintain a position of total security in a world that is inherently chaotic requires a massive, continuous expenditure of neural energy. Your brain is not resting. It is clamped down in a state of high-tension isometric contraction. You are holding the door shut against a wind that never stops blowing, and the effort required to keep that door sealed is consuming the very resources you need to feel alive. Over a timeline of years, this constant, invisible vigilance depletes the dopamine reserves necessary for anticipation, drive, and novelty-seeking. The world slowly loses its texture. The highs become clipped, the lows become muffled. You achieve a flat line of effect where nothing hurts too much, but nothing pierces you with joy either. Music sounds flatter. Food tastes merely like fuel. Conversations feel like scripts you have already read. You are suffering from preservation fatigue. You have prioritized the durability of the vessel over the quality of the voyage, and now the vessel is pristine, but the engine is choking on its own fumes. You catch yourself staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., your body tired, but your mind vibrating with a frantic, static energy. This is the surplus anxiety of a creature designed to hunt, to explore, and to adapt, currently trapped in a cage of its own design. You interpret this lethargy as a personal failing, a lack of willpower. But this depletion is not a malfunction. It is the meticulously calculated invoice for a service you stopped requesting consciously years ago, yet continue to pay for every single day. To understand why you remain in this state despite the accumulating internal cost, we must strip away the poetic concepts of fear or cowardice and look directly at the neurological architecture of decision-making. You are not suffering from a defect of character. You are the victim of a highly efficient, albeit maladaptive, survival algorithm known as predictive coding, specifically operating under a framework of uncertainty reduction. The human brain is, fundamentally, a prediction machine. Its primary biological directive is not to make you happy, nor is it to help you find purpose. Its directive is to ensure the survival of the organism by minimizing prediction error, the difference between what your brain expects to happen and what actually happens. In a primitive context, surprise is expensive. Surprise often equates to predation or death. Therefore, your nervous system is wired to reward predictability with a chemical sense of ease, safety, and to punish uncertainty with a spike of cortisol and norepinephrine, anxiety. When you contemplate pursuing a passion, a venture inherently defined by unknown outcomes, social risk, and financial variability, your brain does not see an opportunity for growth. The amygdala and the anterior cingulate cortex scan the scenario, detect a massive volume of missing data, uncertainty, and tag the entire endeavor as a high-entropy threat. To your ancient hardware, the uncertainty of a creative career or a bold life pivot registers with the same biological urgency as a famine or a physical attack. You believe you are making a logical choice between sensible security and risky passion. In reality, your prefrontal cortex is being hijacked by a lower-order avoidance mechanism. You are not choosing security. You are reflexively recoiling from the metabolic cost of processing the unknown. Every time you choose the safe path, your brain receives a prediction match. The error signal quiets down. You get a microdose of relief. This relief reinforces the neural pathway, making it even harder to deviate next time. You are structurally wiring yourself to equate sameness with survival. But here lies the glitch in the system. If the brain's ultimate goal is to maintain homeostasis and preserve the organism, it should theoretically reward this perfect state of security with a sense of thriving. It should settle into a hum of contentment. Yet, it does the exact opposite. As the external variables become perfectly controlled and the threats are systematically eliminated, the internal alarm system does not shut off. Instead, it turns inward, scanning the empty room for a danger that isn't there, eventually creating a phantom threat just to justify its own existence. Why does a system designed for survival eventually begin to attack the very stability it worked so hard to build? You likely define yourself by what you are not. You are not the artist who took the leap. You are not the entrepreneur who risked it all. You view your internal state as a void, a lack of some essential fire that others possess. This is not a deficit, it is an active, high-power inhibition strategy. You are not boring, you are a highly efficient entropy reduction engine. Your nervous system has correctly identified that passion introduces variables that cannot be controlled, and therefore, it has allocated significant neural resources to suppress those variables before they reach your conscious awareness. What you experience as apathy is actually the sensation of a powerful internal brake being slammed to the floor. You are not lazy, you are exhausted from the invisible work of holding that brake. We must reframe your identity from one of failure to launch to one of successful containment. You have treated your own potential as a volatile substance that requires strict regulation, and in this regard, you have been remarkably competent. You have achieved exactly what your survival instincts demanded, a life with zero prediction errors. But this competence is the cage. You are not fighting against a weakness. You are fighting against a perfectly functioning, ruthless survival mechanism that has mistaken aliveness for danger. Your biology is successfully keeping you safe from the very experiences that would make your survival worth the effort. The system is working perfectly. The only problem is that the system is designed to keep you alive, not to keep you human. This mechanism of uncertainty reduction is not a compartmentalized software that runs only when you are sitting at your desk or looking at a job application. The brain does not segregate career risk from life risk. Once the neural architecture is configured to prioritize the minimization of prediction error, this directive bleeds outward, staining every other domain of your existence like ink dropped into water. The pattern replicates fractally, creating a holographic cage where the bars are made of your own preferences. Consider your relationships. The same algorithm that kept you in the stable, stifling job likely dictated your choice of partner or your choice to remain alone. You may have selected a companion not based on the resonance of their soul with yours, but on their statistical reliability. You looked for low volatility. You prioritized a partner who would not surprise you, who would not challenge the fragile ecosystem of your regulation. In this dynamic, conflict is low, which your amygdala interprets as success. But intimacy requires the exposure of the soft, unarmored parts of the self, an act that is inherently high risk and unpredictable. Because your system cannot tolerate the error potential of being hurt or misunderstood, you unconsciously steer the relationship into the shallow waters of logistical partnership. You become excellent roommates. You manage the household efficiently, but you never truly collide. You have engineered a romantic life with zero friction, and in doing so, you have eliminated the heat that friction generates. You find yourself looking at this perfectly kind, reliable person and feeling a profound, terrifying numbness. You wonder if you are capable of love, but you are not asking a question about love. You are asking a question about risk. You cannot feel the depth of the water because you refuse to wade past your knees. This filtration system extends into your social interactions. Observe yourself in conversation. Do you speak your raw, unedited thoughts, or do you run a rapid simulation of the listener's reaction before you open your mouth? You likely engage in preventative editing. You scan the social environment for consensus, then tailor your output to match the prevailing frequency. You are agreeable. You are a good listener. You rarely offend. This is not empathy, it is defense. By constantly adjusting your behavior to minimize social friction, you render yourself invisible. You are physically present, but psychologically, you are a ghost. You leave social gatherings feeling drained, not because you are introverted, but because you have spent 3 hours performing a complex computational task, calculating the precise set of behaviors that will ensure no one rejects you. You have traded the possibility of deep connection for the guarantee of shallow acceptance. The cost is that no one actually knows you. They only know the mask that protects you. Even your leisure time is colonized by this need for predictive control. Look at how you consume media. You likely re-watch the same series or reread the same books. You scroll endlessly through options, paralyzed by the possibility of wasting 2 hours on a bad movie. This is the optimization trap. Your brain treats time as a scarce resource that must be invested with a guaranteed return. New experiences carry the risk of disappointment, the risk of boredom, the risk of wasted effort. So you retreat to the known. You consume the cultural equivalent of comfort food, starving your brain of the novelty it requires to undergo neuroplasticity. You are bored, yet you are terrified of the erratic nature of the new. Finally, look at your physical environment. The way you organize your home is likely an externalization of your need for internal order. Clutter acts as visual noise, a form of sensory unpredictability. You might find yourself obsessively tidying, not for hygiene but for regulation. If you can control where the objects sit, you can momentarily soothe the anxiety of a world that refuses to sit still. You are building a diorama of control. Across all these contexts, work, love, friendship, play, the pressure pattern is identical. Detect variable, isolate variable, eliminate variable. You have optimized your entire reality for safety, creating a seamless, hermetically sealed loop of days. But the realization is beginning to dawn on you, cold and undeniable. The pattern is not something you do. The pattern is what you are. You have not just chosen a safe career, you have become a closed system. And closed systems, by the laws of thermodynamics, tend toward entropy, a slow heat death of the soul where no energy enters and no energy leaves. The silence in your life is not peace. It is the silence of a room where nothing is happening. The question is no longer about whether you should quit your job. The question is whether you can tolerate the terrifying realization that your entire personality has been shaped by the avoidance of a physiological sensation. You have built a monument to fear and called it a life. You have successfully purchased safety. The transaction is complete and the goods have been delivered. But we must audit the currency you use to pay for it. The cost of this strategy is not measured in abstract regrets or the poetic sadness of what could have been. The cost is biological atrophy. The nervous system adheres to a ruthless economic principle: use it or lose it. Neural pathways that are not activated are marked by the brain as metabolic waste and are subjected to synaptic pruning. By systematically avoiding uncertainty, risk, and intense emotional variance, you have not merely paused your capacity to handle these things, you are actively dismantling the machinery required to process them. Think of your tolerance for life as a joint with a specific range of motion. In the past, perhaps you possessed the flexibility to handle a sudden failure, a chaotic romance, or a sharp deviation in plans. But after years of remaining strictly within the safe zone, that range of motion has calcified. Your comfort zone has not just remained static, it has shrunk. The walls are moving in. Situations that would have been mildly annoying 5 years ago now register as insurmountable threats. You are becoming agoraphobic to your own potential. Furthermore, you cannot selectively numb the spectrum of experience. The mechanism you use to suppress anxiety is a blunt instrument. When you dampen the amplitude of fear, you inevitably dampen the amplitude of joy. You have flattened the waveform of your existence to a straight line. You do not feel despair, but you also do not feel awe. You live in a narrow grey band of fine. Paradoxically, your obsession with security has rendered you profoundly fragile. A system that is never stressed never strengthens. Because you have prevented all minor shocks, you have developed no immunity to chaos. You are a porcelain vessel in a padded room, structurally sound only as long as the world remains perfectly still. You told yourself you were waiting for the right moment to live, that you were saving your energy for a later date. But resilience is not a savings account. It is a battery that degrades if it is not cycled. You are not preserving your potential. You are letting it expire. You are waiting for a future that you are slowly losing the neurological capacity to inhabit. We arrive at the end of this diagnostic not with a cure, but with a recognition. There is no list of steps to follow here. There is no 5-point plan to dismantle a neural architecture that has been reinforced over thousands of days. To offer you a quick solution would be to participate in the very delusion we have just deconstructed. A solution is just another form of certainty, a way to resolve the tension without having to actually feel it. You have spent your entire life rushing to resolve tension. You have treated discomfort as a system error rather than a system feature. So we are left only with the immediate physical present. You are likely sitting in a room that is quiet. The threat level is 0. The external parameters of your life are perfectly stabilized. You have succeeded. But for the first time, perhaps the silence does not feel like peace. It feels like weight. You can feel the heavy, static hum of the machine you built. You can feel the cost of the armor you are wearing, pressing down on a nervous system that is desperate for a variable it cannot predict. The impulse to click away from this text is rising. It is the ancient reflex to seek a lower energy state, to return to the numbness of the known. It is the same reflex that kept you in the chair, in the routine, in the good enough. Do not move. Just for these next few seconds, sit with the specific, suffocating texture of your own safety. Do not promise yourself you will change tomorrow. That is a fantasy. Just observe the cost. If the biological goal was merely to survive, you have won. But if the imperative of the consciousness was to be alive, why does the victory feel so much like grief?